So hello and welcome back. Following on from the last video that I did about social interactions, I was going to cover three of the major areas that affect me the most in my Aspergers, and one of them was the social behaviours, which we covered in the last video. In this video I wanted to talk about sensory overloads, and I'm going to, I suppose, all the senses are covered in this really. For me it's predominantly sound and light, but I do get overwhelmed with my sense of smell, definitely my sense of touch, and to a lesser degree taste. So all the senses can be overstimulated, oversensitive, and you can overload yourself quite easily at levels which most people wouldn't even start registering something was either annoying or unbearable. So sound's been a big one for me down the years. As I only got diagnosed less than a year ago, I'm still going through the process of looking back and laying these traits over events that have happened to me in the past. But sound overload is definitely one of them. I mean, if you connect it with the social interactions, then things like pubs and nightclubs are just a nightmare. They're just places that are excruciating. They're painful at times, exhausting, because not only have you got the social aspect to that, but you've got the sound. Now, I kind of I actually briefly explained about the sound issue. So some of the sound overloading can be too many sounds at once, where I think neurotypical people can easily just hone in on one thing, like in a conversation in a noisy area. They can listen to that person talk and they can hear them and they can process them. Thing is, yeah, I can do that too. But what I can also do, and what I can also not turn off, is hearing everything else that's going on in that room and giving it almost equal footing in my head. It's not that I think I'm really clever that I can listen to loads of things at once. You can imagine listening to 5 people's conversations at once, in a pub or crowded area. After a while, it's just exhausting, because you're concentrating on the person that's actually talking to you, but you are in actual fact listening and taking in certain things in the other conversations that are going on around you. And I often find myself in a situation where, if it's in a noisy pub, I kind of just give up. I try not to let the person I'm talking to know I've given up. It's just too hard for me to concentrate and have a meaningful conversation. As I said before, I'd much rather step out of that noisy place and have a one-to-one where I can give that person my full attention. But trying to keep track of a conversation whilst there's so much noise in the background is sometimes just impossible for me. And that's when people would look at me and say I'm disinterested or bored. I'm not. I've just got to my level where I can't keep processing everything at once, and I kind of have to step back and not engage. The other thing with sound is, I do find I've got very sensitive hearing. I can hear noises that other people have to concentrate on very, very hard to hear. But to me, they're as plain as day. And this particularly manifests itself with sort of low-level noises, rumbles, or like electrical noises. Especially like one thing that I was always, one of these things that I've looked back on since I got my diagnosis is I never really liked spending time in my kitchen when I was a child, and I couldn't really work out why. And it was because of the lighting. It was the ballasts that were powering the fluorescent tubes were giving off a low hum, and this also goes back to other places like supermarkets, where they, not so much now, but back in the sort of 70s and 80s, were just covered in fluorescent tubes, and there was just this overwhelming sort of low level hum that was just really irritating, but I could never put my finger on why. I've since read up on literature and seen that this is a phenomenon among people with autism, especially Aspergers, that they can hear these certain frequencies, they're more in tune to them. But what's, I suppose, more significant is that you can't unhear them. So things like, tubes, or I'm trying to think of other little noises that really bug me. I mean, I'm always little squeaks in the car that, unless I point them out to someone, they haven't even registered, that there's this noise, and when they listen really, really hard, they can find it. But to me, it's like so annoying, I've got to find it. They don't really cause meltdowns because, they can do. I've never had an instant where that's caused me to have a meltdown before. And other things connected with sound are having the radio too loud. If I'm in a car with other people and they're trying to have a conversation with me and they've got the radio on or their music playing, it comes back to the busy bar thing. But still, that's just two things. That's even just two things I'm trying to process. I'm trying to process the radio and what they're saying, and I can't turn one off to listen to the other. So I always end up either turning it down myself or asking them to turn it down. And I always find that the volumes that people listen to music just generally are just way too loud for my hearing. I'm always telling people, turn the TV down or turn their music down, or even to the point if someone's listening to music on their headphones and I can hear the of the headphones, even that will bug the hell out of me. And sometimes I'll just have to get up and go out of the room because I can't even listen to that. They sound like really small non-things, but they really grate very quickly, and they escalate very quickly if you don't do something about them. Either move yourself from the situation or try and find the source of noise and stop it. That also comes into sleep. I have for many years now worn spongy earplugs in my ears for when I go to sleep. Primarily before I got diagnosed with Asperger's, I thought that was because if I was to fall into a deep sleep and I would hear a noise, it would wake me up and then I got interrupted sleep. And if that happened 2 or 3 times in a night, you could wake up feeling quite tired still because you've been woken up by innocuous noises that probably wouldn't wake other people up. And it wasn't until I got my diagnosis that I realised my oversensitive hearing was making me wake up many times a night with noises that were not on other people's hearing spectrum. My partner wouldn't hear them. I'd wake up, and when I wear the earplugs, I don't hear them. I have such a better night's sleep because of that. So, connected with sound, for me, the next strongest thing is light. Very sensitive to light. I mean, if you could see outside the window now, it's raining, it's dreary, it's not very bright, but I've still got my sunglasses on, and I pretty much wear my sunglasses all the time when I'm driving. My eyes are very sensitive to light. And the interesting thing about this is when I look back on my childhood, especially when I was a kid, every single photo that has ever been taken of me, I'm squinting. Always squinting. And I think that's subconsciously, I don't like being out in the bright sunshine. I do like the feeling of the sun on my face, and the warmth, but the brightness, obviously when you're younger, especially at sort of primary school now, you don't go wearing sunglasses all the time, or secondary school, because you'd soon be, it's that thing going back to being singled out. You're trying to make yourself invisible when you've got Aspergers. You don't want people noticing you. You want to just try and blend in. You know you can't be like everyone else, but you can try and act like everyone else to blend in. But so you can't be going around wearing sunglasses. So oversensitivity to light, and of course that once again that manifests itself in things like nightclubs. You've got the social, you've got the sound, you've got the lights, and I would say nightclubs are probably my idea of hell. If I believed in heaven and hell for me would be a really, really loud nightclub that I got to perpetually spend the rest of my life in. I think I've been to a nightclub about 2 or 3 times in my whole life, and it was soon apparent that I hated every minute of it. I didn't know why, and I just avoided the places ever since. Not so much so going to concerts. I've been to lots of music concerts where it's been very loud, obviously pyrotechnics and lights. Not so much that. I think that's because obviously I've got a connection with the music and with the band. That doesn't seem to affect me as much, but flashing lights, bright lights, anything on TV that has lots of flashing lights or bright lights, not the ones that set off epileptic fits, but just lots of bright lights. I'll just change the channel, or I won't watch the program, because it's just like, it irritates me on a profound level that there's no enjoyment for me to carry on watching something like that. So bright lights can cause sensory overloads, especially in direct sunlight, or even just normal light. Some of the other sensory things like taste and texture. When I was a child, and I always remember this, it's probably one of the first times I think I can ever remember going to the doctors. My mum took me to the doctors because she was worried about what I was eating, or more specifically what I wasn't eating. All I was eating was chips, beans and sausages, which by the way is still my favourite meal to this day. She was worried I wasn't getting enough nutrition. I wouldn't eat anything else. I mean, the list of things that I didn't like was so long you wouldn't believe. And it's not until I did some reading of literature and reading of other people's experiences, I realised it comes down to 2 things with food. It comes down to the smell and the texture, which is why I don't like fruit. I don't like the texture of fruit. And vegetables, I don't like the taste or the smell when they were being cooked. My mother wasn't a very adventurous cook, and back in the 70s, so the food was very bland, not very cosmopolitan or Mediterranean. So I'd always struggled to eat anything new or different, and I did that right up until sort of my mid-20s, where I started getting a little bit more adventurous. But the doctor, by the way, said, "Yeah, don't worry about it. He's getting all his protein and roughage and what he needs from that meal anyway. He'll grow out of it." I kind of didn't grow out of it, and there's still lots of things today that I won't eat because I don't like the smell of them, or I don't like the taste of them, or texture of them, I should say. I'm one of these people that will always sniff my food before I eat it. If I don't like the smell, I won't eat it. So taste and texture, that was a big one. Smell, very sensitive to smell. Smells actually are quite emotive to me. I can smell something and it can bring back memories. And some of my favourite smells, like bonfires or asphalt, weird things to like the smell of, but I do like the smell of them. But equally, if there's something not quite right in my vicinity, I will be the one that tracks it down and finds out what it is before anyone else, once again, has even registered that there's something a bit whiffy. So that is in a nutshell, I think, the sensory sensitivities. As I said, the only ones of them that ever really cause me meltdowns is noisy, chaotic, confusing environments. I know I've tried to stay away from them like the plague since I was young, and I still do to this day. Light, yeah, I don't like going out in the sunlight without my sunglasses, or just sitting out in the sun. I don't mind being outside. I like going outside, but not really super bright places. So yeah, that's pretty much covered the sensory stuff, and in the next video we'll talk about obsessive interests and behaviours. So thanks for watching again. Bye.